Have you ever noticed how we often try to fit complex people and big events into tiny boxes so that we can understand them better? We love to use simple labels to describe how someone will act, especially when that person is very powerful. When we look at the world of international politics, we often see two very different stories being told about the same leader. One group of people might say that a leader is all talk and no action. They believe that if you stand your ground, the leader will eventually back down and walk away. Another group of people might argue the exact opposite. They believe that if you challenge this leader, you will face immediate and painful consequences. These two ideas seem like they cannot both be true at the same time. It feels like choosing between two different colors that do not match. However, when we look closer at how power actually works, we see something much more interesting. We see that a leader might behave like a tiger with one person and like a kitten with another. This is not just a random choice. It is a calculated strategy that depends on who is standing on the other side of the table. To understand this, we must first look at the surface concept of how strength is shown in public. Most people view power as a fixed quality. We think a person is either tough or they are not. In the world of global politics, we see this in the way countries react to threats. Some countries watch a leader and decide that his threats are just a performance. They think it is a game of chicken where the first person to blink loses. This is the idea that when things get difficult, a leader will always find an excuse to avoid a real fight. We see this when a leader makes a big promise about taxes or trade but then changes his mind when he realizes it might hurt his own economy. From the outside, this looks like a lack of courage. It looks like someone who is afraid to follow through. This is one way to see the world, and it makes us feel like we can predict what will happen next. We think we know the pattern. But this leads us to a hidden assumption that we often miss. We assume that a leader's personality is more important than the actual power of the people he is dealing with. We forget that politics is a relationship. When a leader backs down, it might not be because he is weak. It might be because he has met someone who is just as strong as he is. Think about a big playground. If a bully meets a smaller child, he might take their lunch money. But if that same bully meets a professional wrestler, he will probably be very polite and stay away. This does not mean the bully has changed his personality. It just means he understands the cost of a fight. In the world of nations, this happens with very large economies. If a country provides essential goods like oil or food or minerals, they have a lot of leverage. They can afford to ignore threats because they know they are needed. In these cases, the leader who makes the threat has to find a way to make a deal without looking like he lost. The hidden reality is that the behavior is not about the leader himself but about the balance of power in the room. This brings us to a structural pattern that defines how our modern world is organized. There is a spectrum of consequences. On one end of the spectrum, you have the very powerful countries. These are the giants who can respond with their own strength. When a leader faces them, he often chooses to compromise. He might even act like a friend to the person he was just threatening. This creates a confusing image for the public. But on the other end of the spectrum, you have smaller or more vulnerable countries. For them, the situation is completely different. When they try to push back, they do not find a deal waiting for them. Instead, they find a wall of pressure. For these countries, the threats are very real and the pain comes quickly. This pattern shows us that justice and rules are not applied the same way to everyone. The consequences you face depend entirely on how much you have to offer or how much you can take away. It is a world of selective pressure where the rules change based on the size of your bank account or the strength of your military. This allows us to reframe our perspective on what we call strength or weakness. Instead of seeing a leader as inconsistent, we should see them as highly adaptive. They are constantly measuring the room. This is a very practical and cold way of looking at the world. It is not about being right or being moral. It is about winning and losing. When we see a leader make a deal with an old enemy, it is not a sign of a new friendship. It is a sign that the cost of war was too high. When we see a leader crush a small opponent, it is not a sign of great bravery. It is a sign that the cost of bullying was very low. Understanding this spectrum helps us look past the loud words and the dramatic headlines. We can start to see the gears turning behind the scenes. We can see that most of these public arguments are actually negotiations about price and power. We can apply this insight to our own daily lives as well. We see this pattern in our offices and our communities all the time. Think about a boss who is very demanding with the junior staff but very kind and flexible with the top performers. It is the same pattern. The top performers have leverage because they are hard to replace. The junior staff are easier to pressure. When we understand this, we can stop taking these behaviors personally. We can stop wondering why someone is being unfair and start looking at the balance of value in the relationship. If you want to change how someone treats you, the best way is not to complain about their personality. The best way is to increase your own value or your own strength. In a world where people react to power, you must find your own source of power to be respected. This might mean learning a new skill or building a stronger network of friends. It means moving yourself along that spectrum so that you are no longer a target for pressure. This deepening of our understanding shows us that the world is much more fluid than we think. We often get caught up in the drama of who said what on social media. We focus on the insults and the names people call each other. But all of that is just noise. The real story is found in the trade deals and the movements of resources. It is found in the quiet meetings where people realize they need each other to survive. Even the most aggressive leaders are often forced to be practical when the numbers do not add up. This is a strange kind of comfort. It means that even in a very divided and angry world, there is still a limit to how much damage can be done. The reality of the global economy acts like a set of brakes on a car. It keeps us from flying off the cliff because everyone wants to keep their own house standing. However, we must also remember that for those who are small and have no protection, the world remains a very dangerous place. The spectrum of power is a harsh reality that leaves many people behind. We have to decide if we want to live in a world that is only governed by strength or if we want to build something better. We are all part of this system whether we like it or not. We are watching a live experiment in how human beings handle authority and conflict. Every time we see a leader back down or lean in, we are learning something about the nature of our species. We are seeing how quickly we can switch from being a fighter to being a businessman. This flexibility is what allows us to survive, but it is also what makes the world feel so unpredictable. We are living in a time where the old rules are being tested every day. The labels we use are just tools to help us feel safe in a chaotic environment. But the truth is always moving. It is always shifting between the two ends of the spectrum. To truly understand what is happening, we have to look at the people on both sides of every conflict. We have to ask who has the most to lose and who has the most to gain. Only then can we see the world as it really is instead of how it is described in a 10-second video clip. We are all watching the same play, but we are seeing different things because of where we are sitting. If you knew that every threat made against you was just a calculation of your own strength, how would you prepare yourself for the next time someone tried to push you around?